welcome to our next flipped video. We are going to take a look at several different population theories, and these are theories of population growth, how to stem the population growth, or how to encourage population growth, mostly in this instance, how to limit population growth. So we'll start at the beginning with the essential question, what is Malthusian population theory? So to get us started, Thomas Malthus is the heart of the Malthusian theory. He's the geographer who established this. He lived in 1798 in England, which is significant because as with any theory, we need to understand the limitations of the theory. The basis of what Thomas Malthus believed is that he believed that Earth has a natural limit. That's where we get the phrase carrying capacity from. And he believed that the population growth he saw in 1798 was causing Earth to reach that carrying capacity. Again, quick reminder that carrying capacity on the left-hand side, if you need it, the largest number of people that a particular environment can support. Now, it's important to note that carrying capacity is different across space, so different environments have different carrying capacities. But in this instance, we're speaking about the Earth's carrying capacity as a whole. And Thomas Malthus believed that the Earth would then respond to the increasing pressures of overpopulation with what he called natural checks. I want you to think of check as something that limits, something that responds to. So an easy way to think of that, if someone says check yourself, then they're reacting. They're telling you to do something, to limit or to stop something. So the natural checks that he think that were going to occur would be things like war, famine, absence of food, or some sort of natural disaster. So all around, Thomas Malthus is a pretty pessimistic view of what's going to happen to the world in 1798. More specifically, this Malthusian theory should be on the left here. He believed that population was growing exponentially. This is also known as geometrically. But he believed at the time that the world's ability to produce food, specifically agricultural production, so farming production, was only increasing arithmetically. So notice on the graph at the bottom, the blue would indicate exponential geometric growth. The red line is a reflection of the arithmetic growth of our ability to produce food. In turn, he believed that the world was going to reach a population crisis in the 19th century. The 19th set of 100 years is the 1800s. So you can see that logically, if our population is growing on that blue line and their ability to produce food is at that red line, the point at which population is exceeding our ability to feed ourselves, he believed was going to be the point of the crisis. Now, just a little bit greater detail here. This is a little bit nuanced, and this is a little bit confusing. He believed what was going to happen were those natural checks. Positive checks. Sounds like I need us to get rid of the idea of positive being good here for a minute. Positive checks, meaning things that can actively happen to reduce the population, would be things like that are violent natural forces. So these are natural disasters, these are the famines, these are the wars. So again, don't think of positive as in good. Positive just means things that can actively happen. Negative checks were examples of preventative measures, things that would reduce or prevent people from overpopulating. He believed specifically in celibacy. Celibacy means that you abstain from sex. So he had an unusual view of how to limit this, particularly rooted in his Catholic beliefs, something we'll get to in our culture unit. Birth control had not yet been invented by this point, so that's important, or birth control in terms of the pill, I should say, or the modern uses of contraception had not yet been invented. So he was not for them because of his Catholic beliefs. So he believed that point of crisis would lead to some sort of positive or in turn negative checks on the population. Skipping through that for a second. Here's his major fallacy. Fallacy is why he's wrong, okay? Fallacy is he did not account for agricultural technology or simply technology on the whole. He did not predict the Industrial Revolution. He did not predict that you can see here that we can make watermelons in a shape that would make them easier to ship on a global level. We have machines that can water plants faster and more effectively than ever known. We have genetically modified organisms that can survive droughts over long periods of time. So he in no way, shape, or form predicted the standards of living, the betterment of the standards of living, and did not account for the growth of agricultural technology. Because quite obviously, if I go back here for a minute, he lived in the 1790s. He said we'd have this population crisis in the 1800s. Well, it's 2016. We're still here, so there isn't necessarily going to be that same. So in that way, he was incorrect. But then I also want us to consider, but is the same principle that he's giving us, that the idea that the Earth could exceed its carrying capacity, is that principle still applicable? And I would argue to some extent, yes. Specifically, the group of people known as the neo means after or later, more specifically, later Malthusians. These are people who are in modern times believe that Malthus was generally accurate, and they're very concerned with current environmental impacts. So they acknowledge, yes, the world didn't just implode, yes, we're still here, but they're components of Malthus's argument that we still need to listen to. They believed that our current practices, our current population growth is exceeding the global capacity and global carrying capacity. But what they acknowledge is that there's actually certain parts of the world that need to slow that population growth, as opposed to the entire world as a whole, because as we know, least developed countries are where the population growth is occurring. They argue that these countries have only been surviving on the aid of others as opposed to their own individual ability to provide for their people. So they're in this way exceeding their carrying capacity but benefiting from trade from other places. Another key difference of the Neo-Malthusians is they believe in contraception. So that's a key difference than Malthus's early belief. So again, just to reiterate here, the Neo-Malthusians, as exemplified by the population growth chart, believe that there is still a crisis to be had and that we still must address our rapidly growing population. Other alternative population theories, notice the shift in the essential question at the top. Other population theories come from Karl Marx, those of you who've studied communism. Karl Marx believed that, in fact, there's actually plenty of global resources, but they're inequitably, unevenly, unfairly distributed, and that the wealthy are exploiting the poor. This is exactly what we see with the core, semi-periphery, and periphery model from Wallerstein. So he argues that the problem is not necessarily our population growth, but the unequitable distribution of the world's resources. And thus, in turn, he believed in communism and equally distributing them. Another well-known population theory comes to us from Esther Basara. Esther Basara believed that that in fact, though we have a global increasing population, that actually is an opportunity for the world. She sees the world in a much more optimistic sense that larger populations just means larger innovation. The more people to think of new ways and new ideas to provide for one another. So as it says there, more people equals more human capital, which is capital is a valuable resource. So more humans who can potentially use these ideas for the betterment of us all. Examples of that would be, of course, the Industrial Revolution and our ability widely expanded to provide for so many more people. Another example that we'll spend enormous time learning about is the Green Revolution, which is a reference to the massively expanding ability to provide food from the technologies of more developed countries diffusing to less developed countries. Recycling, and that one I was getting to is just different forms of preserving our water. Many different ways in which the increasing ability of the world's population to provide for themselves. Esther Basara is considered in that way a contradict or the opposite, I guess, in many ways to Thomas Malthus. Okay, that's it. That's why we're going to hold it there. Simple and easy on our alternative population theories, and we'll complete the analysis questions now.